What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Noah Hiles, your Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Pirates beat writer, coming to you on a Thursday, which means it's time for a Pirates mailbag. Before we get into all of that, though, got to remind everyone to check out my work at post-gazette.com, where you can read all of our Pirates coverage that the Post-Gazette provides. Colin Beasley, my beat partner, has a lot of great stuff on there as well. You can also read all of our non-Pirates related coverage. We cover all of the professional sports teams in towns, along with the collegiate teams and high school sports throughout the city and the surrounding areas. And we don't just cover sports at the Post-Gazette. We cover news, we cover politics, we cover all the local stuff, all the big events, culture, art, all of it. Read it all at post-gazette.com. Get yourself a digital subscription if you don't have one already, or check out our print product. We print every Thursday and Sunday. You can read it all at the Post-Gazette. All right, let's get into the questions now. Chris starts us off with a good one. He basically wants to know, is 2026 going to be the final full year, I should say, Paul Skenes has in a Pirates uniform? When you really think about it, 2026 is the final year under this current CBA. CBA negotiations will start at the end of the 2026 season in that off season, and they're not expected to go smooth. It's been anticipated by many that there's going to be a lockout, and that could bleed into the 2027 regular season, and that could eat up a chunk of that regular season schedule, meaning no more full year of Paul Skenes in 2027. And then after 2027, you look at it, he has 2 more years of club control after that one. And that's when they traded Cole with that many years remaining, with that length remaining on his rookie deal. I think it would be a fair assumption that that's when the market would really start to heat up for Skenes. So what are my thoughts on it? I completely agree with Chris. I think that the way things are trending now, I think 2026 is the only guaranteed full year the Pirates have of Paul Skenes remaining, simply because I don't know what 2027 is going to look like. There's a chance that no baseball is played in 2027. And if you do get a full season, then I do think Paul will be here for the entirety of the 2027 campaign. But past 2027, I don't know how much longer Paul will be in a Pirates uniform, just because when you look at it, and it's a tough reality for fans to accept, right? Like, this guy means a lot to the town. He represents a lot of hope, a lot of promise. He could take you really far just on his own, with his own talent. But let's be real. In the next 2 years, how much is this team really going to improve? I think there's a chance it's better. But, I mean, this is a guy who's not going to sign an extension unless he truly believes this team is competitive, if they really have a chance to win a championship. Not the bar that a lot of people have around here, where it's just they're relevant, that they're contending for postseason of any kind, right? He wants to win championships. So that's where the bar is for this guy. So when you look at where they are now and where they need to be for him to sign an extension, they've got a long ways to go. So let's assume the extension is not a realistic possibility, because financially it probably isn't anyway. Now you really need to be in a competitive spot to justify keeping Paul past 2027. Because when you dip into that second to last year of control, it's his second year of arbitration. He's going to be making a lot of money, probably going to be pushing for that record that Ohtani had in arbitration, which I believe was like $20 million. Pirates aren't going to be thrilled to pay that. And even if they do, you've got to look at Paul as an expiring asset at that point. You don't want to trade him with only a year of control left. So I think at 2027, if you're going to keep him for that second to last year, you need to make sure that your team is in a position to compete for a championship. Not a wild card, not maybe a division title, but for the National League pennant. And do we see that happening? I don't think so. So as harsh of a reality as it is, they need to make some big leaps, or otherwise this guy's got 2 years remaining here before the most valuable thing he can provide to the franchise is being traded for a haul. Because you'll get a haul for Paul Skenes. You will get a haul for Paul. You'll get a ton. And that could make the franchise better long term, the return you get for him. But that return becomes lesser and lesser every time he steps on a mound. And if you're going to keep him for his fifth year of control and then go into that offseason, you basically you have to trade him if you're going to trade him. You can't just get nothing for him because they're not re-signing him. There's just until the franchise gives anyone any reason to believe that they would make a reasonable offer for this guy to stick around, you have to assume that he's gone when his contract expires if you let him hit free agency. And the Pirates shouldn't. It'd be fiscally irresponsible for them to just let him walk. You have to trade him and get something. And I think the time to do that makes most sense is after 2027. The game will be in a different economic state. I don't think there will be a salary cap, but I think certain things will be done to make it a little bit more favorable for small market teams. And you carry that momentum, but you parlay it with trading probably the game's most valuable pitching asset, and you can set yourself up for a nice run. Well, you have Bubba Chandler still under contract and club control. Connor Griffin, Jared Jones will still be under club control. You'll have other guys. So it's tough, but yeah, to answer your question, Chris, I think I think next year might be Paul's full final season as a Pirate, because 2027 is a mystery as far as how many games will actually be played. And after that, we're approaching that territory where it's time to move on. Bill wants to know, has there been any updates mentioned of the results of the fan survey that went out in the spring? I would be going out too far on a limb to say that the general fan base will probably never know the results of this survey, but I'm pretty sure I can guess what the results turned out to be. Bill, yeah, you're right. I doubt those results will ever be made public, for good reason, because from what I've heard, and I've talked to a couple of people who saw those results, they weren't pretty. Still don't understand why that survey was sent out. I don't know what you had to gain. I mean, if the Pirates couldn't gauge how fans were feeling about their organization after an offseason that included billboards and sell the team chants and all this negativity, then, I mean, shame on them for not knowing. But if they didn't know from that survey's results, they definitely got the message with everything that unfolded in April and May. So, yeah, I don't think we'll ever see those results from that survey. Adam wants to know, is it true that Cherington didn't do much in free agency because he'd spent too much of the baseball budget on the analytics department? If so, how is he still employed? All right, so this is a narrative that gets talked about a decent amount by some people who cover the team or follow the team. I'm going to shine my 2 cents on it. Yes, they spent more money on, I hate the term analytics. To me, when you say that as a reporter, I think it's a tell sign that you don't necessarily know everything that goes into a baseball operation in 2025. Analytics is such a generic term. They spent money on research and development. They spent money on technology. They spent money on better scouting. They spent money, I think the front office, I guess, would be a better way to put it. Or I think research and development is where most of that money went toward technology for better research, for technology to have better development in the farm. Player development is important at this level. So yes, they spent more money than they have in recent years this past offseason on R&D. That's a good thing. The Pirates are way behind. Everyone talks about how they can't develop hitters. That's how you get better. You add employees to your research and development staff that can identify talent, that can identify traits in the draft, in the low levels of the minor leagues, in the international market, where you can find better player value, where you can identify problems early on in a player's development and address them and make them better. Development is the key here. That's what analytics is. They're not just spending money on algorithms or on a whole bunch of Jonah Hills who sit around and do nothing. These people, if the Pirates are ever going to be competitive again, it's because the front office is better than their competition's front office. That's how it works for small market teams. Everyone wants this team to be like the Brewers, to be like the Guardians, to be like the Rays. The Rays the Guardians, the Brewers, they spend a lot of money on this stuff. Way more than the Pirates. The Pirates had to catch up. So they were aggressive this past offseason, and they put a lot of resources into that area of the franchise. The problem is the overall grand sum is nowhere near enough. A winning formula would be to add money and say, okay, we still have this budget for our players. We need more for research and development. We need an additional investment. A non-winning formula is forcing a general manager to choose which area of the organization gets cut in funding or gets less funding, has less resources allocated toward it. This isn't to say that the Pirates, I think that doesn't necessarily tell an accurate story about the Pirates offseason as well. I do think that their spending in R&D probably limited their abilities. Like, yeah, they could have spent more money on players had they not invested more money into R&D. There's no doubt about that. However, they should have had a higher payroll. They just weren't successful in some areas. I heard a couple of names of guys that they were involved in for free agency, and they're playing for other teams for less money than the Pirates offered. Can't do anything about that. They also they were close to making some trades, and they didn't get the job done. That's not me excusing the front office by any means. But if the moves that they wanted to make were made, the player payroll would be higher. Needless to say, though, or suffice to say, regardless, I don't know what I'm doing here. It's been a long day. With all of that being said, they should not be in a position where they have to choose, where your spending in one area prohibits you from maximizing your spending in another area. This team was far, far behind in research and development, and still probably is. They need to spend a lot of money to catch up. And that effort to catch up shouldn't penalize them in Major League payroll. And if so, then that's something that should have been done years ago. It probably wasn't able to be done years ago because, this regime started in a pandemic. And just knowing how nutting operates, I'm sure the budget was a lot tighter back then just because they didn't make any money in 2020. But yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough. And I think you can criticize Cherington for a lot, but I don't think it's a smart idea. If the hires don't work out well, then that's one thing. But this team wasn't another $10 million away from being a playoff team. Look at it. They're in last place. Do you think another $10 million? Do you think if they had a $100 million payroll, they'd be 500? I don't think so. They had a lot more flaws. This was a long-term play, something that might play out well after Cherington's gone. But the bigger problem isn't how the money was spent. It's just that there's just not enough money. There's a lot of problems in this organization, and money's the only way to fix them all. And when you have to choose which area gets the money rather than divvying up an adequate amount, a fair amount for your market size, you're not going to win when someone has to get the short end of the stick. Josh wants to know, who do you target in next week's draft? What's the best and worst case scenario? I don't think this is a traditional take here. If I'm the Pirates, I'm gunning for one of those three left-handers. I have their names right here. Cade Anderson, Liam Doyle, Jamie Arnold. Those are the three left-handers. They're number 2, number 4, and number 8 on MLB Pipeline's top prospects list. Anderson's definitely not going to be around. Doyle and Arnold might be. I think at best you're lucky to get one of those three available at pick number 6, if any. But if one of those three are available, and if I'm the Pirates, I'm taking them for a couple of reasons. One, you know how to develop arm talent. Connor Griffin is a nice success story, but I'm still not convinced that they figured all of that out. And even if you have 20 other picks after the number 6 to find another young athletic player and turn him into a good prospect. But with this one, I think when you're picking inside the top 10, you've got to take your best shot at hitting on a pick. Right now, taking a college arm gives them that best chance. Yeah, they don't need pitching, but heck, adding in Anderson, Doyle, or Arnold, if they draft any of those guys are instantly probably top 40 prospects in baseball. Pirates know how to develop them. Left-handed pitching works well in this ballpark. And I don't see any of them needing more than a year or two of development before they reach the game's highest level. So what does that add to the system? A system full of arms already and lacking bats? What it adds is more flexibility to trade Mitch Keller, to trade another pitching asset in the future. Hell, you could trade one of those 3. You could draft Jamie Arnold and then trade him this offseason if you want. I think that's the quickest way to make your team better in 2026 is by drafting a college arm that can be here in less than 2 years, because it allows you to move assets to acquire bats right now. That's why I would do it. I just feel like that's the surest fire way to get the most out of the pick. I feel like some middle ground would just be drafting Arquette out of Oregon State. That seemed, if I had to bet, and I'm not going to, BBWAA, I promise, I'm not going to. But if I had to bet, I would think that that's probably the guy they end up going with. Just because I think that he'll be there at 6 and he's a college bat, he makes sense. But yeah, that's probably the most realistic option. Worst case scenario, I don't know. I would not like to see them draft a high school arm. I just don't see the benefits of that. So that's my take on that. Question from Reese, who wants to know, how much does a draft prospect's agency affect on their willingness to draft a player? Like how Arquette is a Boris client. That's interesting. I haven't thought about it a ton. I haven't asked about it a ton. So this is all speculation. I think it hurts a little, maybe. I mean, there aren't a ton of Boris clients in the Pirates org. They're well represented through other major agencies, though. Aces, ISE, Ballingy Group. There's others. I mean, they have, agencies that represent some of the best players in the world. I mean, they're just not Boris guys. So, I mean, maybe it's a deal breaker. Like if they're tied between one player and another, if the one agency has a better relationship with the Pirates, then I'm sure like that might factor in a little. But I don't think they just see Boris guys and they're like, okay, not drafting him, not drafting him, not drafting him. So, yeah, that's what I believe to be the case anyway. We got 2 more questions before we get to them. I'm going to take a quick pause, and you're going to hear from our show's presenting sponsor, Greenwalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenwalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years' experience, Greenwalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenwalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenwalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenwaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
Big thanks to our friends at Greenwalt Roofing. All right, let's get back to the questions now. We got 2 more. First one comes from Robert, my boy Robert Sir. Shout out Robert Sir from my days at KDKA. He wants to know who gives out the worst media meals in Major League Baseball. Easy answer here, and it actually might be surprising. The Dodgers. Worst press dining in baseball, bar none. I've had better meals at high school baseball games, high school football games, small schools even, than what the Dodgers give out. Granted, Dodger Stadium's old. And more often than not, the older stadiums tend to have like the worst press accommodations just because they're older in general. But the media meal at Dodger Stadium is bad. The only plus is that they have Dodger dogs readily available throughout the entire game. So I tend to just go with the Dodger dogs rather than press dining at Dodger Stadium. It's bad. That's the easy answer there. And then Paul closes us off with this question: who do you think is in the rotation in the bullpen for the Pirates on August 1st, 2025? Ugh, I'm a little tongue-tied today. Guess I'm still a little jet lagged from Seattle. But I like this question to close us off. So what does the Pirates pitching staff look like post-trade deadline? Here's what I have. In the starting rotation, I have Paul Skenes, Bailey Falter, Mike Burrows, Thomas Harrington, and Bubba Chandler. Those are the 5. So I'm going to say Mitch and Heaney are both shipped away. In the bullpen, I'm going to go with Braxton Ashcraft, Carmen Mlodzinski, Kyle Nicholas, Dari Murrieta, Isaac Madsen, Chase Shugart, Genesis Cabrera, and then the final spot will be a new guy. I don't know what they'll bring in. I do think they'll acquire at least one arm this offseason or this trade deadline season. Just get someone that is a fringe guy, maybe a swing man from a postseason contending team that they think they can turn into a leverage arm, or potentially a starter, someone like Bailey Falter a couple years ago. And look at how good that trade ended up being. Yeah, I think that's what it will look like. The rotation might be different. I could see them just treating Skenes, Falter, and Burrows and Chandler as 4 traditional starters, and then that 5th spot will kind of be rotation between Harrington, Carmen, Ashcraft, guys who basically it'd be a bullpen game every 5th day, which I don't hate with the situation that they're in at this point in the season. Get all of your young arms reps if possible. Well, that's all I got for this one. I appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, subscribe to this YouTube channel at PG Pirates. Keep listening on the podcast network if you're a listener, and keep checking out all of our work at post-gazette.com. We'll have more content for you every day moving forward.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.